What's up, guys? So today we are doing a roundtable here with all the coaches. Today, what we're going to be talking about is hitting that reset button after summer. You may have gone on holidays or done some travel during the summer. There's a lot of events that obviously go on. We've got a lot of parents. So kids are now back in school, which means, there is a shift in the routines. Summer just has a little bit of a different routine than what the fall has to offer. So what I want to chat with the coaches today is what do we do moving into the fall now? What advice would you give your clients to build some consistency after summer?
Okay, I'll go first. So basically, summertime, obviously, for a lot of people is busy, lots of travel, vacation. If you have kids, you have them home all summer. So I do think that, the fall is just a really good time to be able to bring things back to routine and bring things back to structure. And I think a really big key aspect of that is planning and scheduling, especially if you do have kids or if you live with other family members or obviously with like a partner, husband, whatever it may be, making sure that you guys are on the same page about what you guys need to do on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis. So a couple of things that I recommend that you guys implement is, first of all, like a daily planner. And it can be a physical one, or it can be on your phone, on your laptop, on your iPad, whatever it may be. What I like to do every Sunday is sit down and spend a couple of minutes just mapping out the upcoming week when it comes to activities that I have, that both of my girls have. If we have any kind of appointments, work-related tasks, I will schedule in as well. And then what I do every night is I sit down at the end of every night, I have a sticky pad and I just write a list of things that I need to do the following day. And I also like to time block. I think time blocking can be very helpful, especially if you are somebody who works from home. So this is where you basically just set time constraints or time boundaries around doing specific tasks. So for example, like doing laundry from 9 to 11 or something like that, or going for a walk from 10 to 10:45. Just things like that. It can kind of allow you to create your own schedule if you don't have the schedule of having to go to a physical workplace. And then I also recommend, if you do have kids or if you live with other people, having a family calendar somewhere that is visually uh, accessible for everybody. So ours is in the kitchen. It's a whiteboard calendar, and we fill that out every month with like my fiance's work schedule. Again, like any of the girls' activities, if they don't have school on certain days, things like that. And I just think that that's really, really important. There is the saying, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And you can't simply just wake up every day and expect like to be able to remember everything that you have to do or just to magically accomplish all of your tasks without actually having them well mapped out. And I think that the majority of the coaches on this call, we all do some sort of planning and some sort of scheduling, like in our own way. So you have to find what works for you, but you do just want to start every day and every week and every month off with a little bit of a game plan.
I'm going to piggyback off of Clara because what I was going to say was like very similar to like scheduling and structure, but more so in regards to sleep. Because I think everybody listening to this can do a better job at having some sort of sleep routine, but more specifically, like going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, regardless of kind of like what's going on. It can be a little bit challenging if you're working shift work or anything like that. But even on those kinds of days where you have like different shifts or you have to wake up at different times, still try to keep it as consistent as possible. But if we're talking about, if you typically wake up at 6 a.m. on the like during the week, but then you sleep in on the weekends, try not to sleep in so much on the weekends because it can kind of act like a form of jet lag in a sense, because you sleep in for the next couple of days on the weekends and then you force yourself to go to bed earlier Sunday night, and then Monday morning is always kind of a battle for everyone. So try to keep the wake up time and sleep times very consistent. I think, again, everyone can be a little bit better at sleep. But I think during the summertime specifically, everyone's a bit of a loose cannon. I'm guilty for it too. But I'm trying to get into a better routine of going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. And we all know, like, there's some mornings that you wake up and you just feel crappy, you feel groggy. But I guarantee you, once you start going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time, you will feel better. Like, once you do it for maybe like a week, 2 weeks, waking up actually it gets easier. It doesn't suck every single time. Waking up gets easier, but you also have to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position so that you can actually wake up. Most people will set their phones, their alarms right next to their bed. And then once the alarm goes off, they just turn it off and then they fall back asleep. Put your phone or put your alarm clock. I don't think anyone uses an alarm clock anymore. Put your phone away from the bed so that you are forced to get up out of your bed to turn off the alarm. And then now that you're up, you're up. You just go to the bathroom, do your thing, and then you start your day. And I also do think, I truly believe, I'm sure there's evidence to support this too, that if you do this, if you wake up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, you just feel better throughout the day. You have a smoother, what's the word? A smoother burst of energy throughout the day. I find that you don't crash as often. You're not constantly relying on caffeine, and it just helps set you up for a better structured day. And then when the nighttime rolls around, your body knows that you're getting ready for bed. So set some sort of schedule. I know it sucks. I know going to bed is boring. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but it could really set you up going into the fall.
I think Jeff Nippard shared a reel like a few weeks ago, and a part of that was like studies just about how like the routine. So you're 100%.
I knew there was something out there. I just didn't know where it was.
Yes, there are absolutely studies that support that. You have about an hour of flux, but if it's fluxing beyond that, it does carry over to impact sleep quality. And I love what Clara and Greg have shared. And in addition to really putting you in the driver's seat, these are going to be strategies that help with your stress management and your energetic management. And we need to think of our time and energy as currency, and we need to be able to budget. Now, coming into fall, this is like a springboard. As we come into fall, we feel that energy where we're craving routine, we're craving structure, we're ready to ground in. Summer is very social, very dynamic, very outgoing. We have a lot of energy that we're outputting. So as we come into fall, we're in a really strong position that we're excited to get back into routine. I want to kind of walk through the process of some of the things that I tend to do as I come into fall. Now, I often will re-listen or reread Atomic Habits. I highly recommend. Now, Atomic Habits is focused on really starting to deconstruct the details and the micro habits that you have, and being able to really utilize your time and energy strategically. And as we move through this seasonal transition, I like to view it as a self-audit. And for many of us, we are transitioning into a new routine. So I have kids that are in school, they're going back to school, we're transitioning into the routine, we're transitioning into activities. And we want to be able to take Clara's suggestion of time blocking, map out that week and map out all of the non-negotiables, the drop-offs, the pickups, the kids' activities, but we also want to start scheduling time for our own personal non-negotiables, when we're going to get the steps in, when we're going to meal prep, when we're going to get our training in, and view it that way, that we're booking something in with ourselves. You can even put it in as a wellness meeting in your calendar if that holds more authority. Now, some things that I find are really important making this transition into back to school, into kids' activities, is preparation. If that preparation is not in place, it suddenly feels like you're in survival mode. And if you're in parenthood, I'm sure you've had days, weeks, months that felt like that, where you are in survival mode. And we want to be able to stay in the driver's seat and stay in alignment. And this is where our preparation really does hold a lot of power. So even being able to look at the days that are jam-packed with activities and be able to go into those moments well prepared, be able to have meals, be able to really lean on your habits as a tool and as a resource. And when we start transitioning into this season that is dynamic, but in a different way, and there is kids' activities and it feels like you're on the go all the time, being able to have what you need to be well resourced and be successful. I know for me, things like meal prep are essential. I need that meal prep so that I can get my kids to their activities, I can stay fueled, I can stay energized while also having my fueling aligned with the goals that I personally have. So that would be one of my big pieces of advice to give, that as you're transitioning into a new routine, being able to really bricklay from the ground up. Okay, this is the framework, this is the structure, this is what I need to be successful. My time and energy is a finite resource, and I'm going to intentionally manage it so that it's going where it's going to hold the most value and matter most.
I love everything you said there, Em. And I think it's also equally important to make sure that what we're doing with our transition from summer into fall is really make sure that we're not going from 0 to 100, right? Now, with that being said, I know for myself personally, like we all, live very different lifestyles and whatnot to a certain degree. I feel like for myself, summers are a little bit looser in terms of like my fitness goals. And I really find myself like being realigned when summer comes to a close. It starts getting a little chillier out, and I get really excited about my goals again. And it looks different for everyone, like I said, right? But what I kind of want to chat mostly about is the importance on like setting small, specific goals to really kind of finish off the year and finish things off strong. I think it really helps just kind of create a lot of clarity and direction with what we're doing and like bringing that intention back into things here, right? Because with summer and it being busy and things popping up and being social, right? It's a really great time, but it kind of allows our habits to get a little bit looser, and kind of tightening the reins, having a roadmap to follow again, I think is really important. And then with that being said as well, I think it gives you some kind of form of measurement, right? Being able to follow along with your progress, make sure you're checking off your boxes, make sure that the goals that you're setting are realistic, but that you're actually hitting them, right? So giving yourself that kind of timeline can also kind of give yourself that urgency and that sense of urgency that I do think is important from time to time too. Zach, how do you feel about like with your prep and where you're at now? Like, do you feel like having that like timeline helps with your prep, obviously, creating that urgency?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like every time I have a big fitness goal, having a timeline like that, something that really makes you want to push is essential. Because if I didn't have a timeline for it, if I didn't have a hard goal with a specific timeline, a specific outcome I'm looking for, it kind of feels like I'm just kind of shooting fish in a barrel. Like I'm just shooting and just trying to hit something and trying to get somewhere, but I don't really know where. And I feel like it gives you less conviction in everything that you do when you don't have that alignment and have that focus. So yeah, absolutely. You need to have a time specific goal, something that's, again, obviously attainable and achievable, but something that is not too far off either. Because I feel like if you set a really, really massive goal, like that's great, but it might be wise to break that down into smaller goals, smaller, more achievable goals, and then kind of reverse engineer from there and be like, okay, if I want to achieve this goal, what would me, the version of me that has achieved this would have to do in order to achieve it. So you kind of break it down backwards from there. And figure out, okay, like what do I have to do in order to be that version of me? And then just act like that in every day that you can. But yeah, the time sensitive goal is everything, because it kind of lights a fire under your ass. You get a little bit more pressure on yourself, which I think is good. And I think if you pair that with motivation, and I think a lot of us are probably feeling motivated right now coming off of the summer going into the fall, we're a lot more motivated. So I think if you pair that motivation and have a solid plan, you're sleeping better, you figure out kind of what your goal is and you plan out your day for it, you're going to be way more successful than, not having that time specific goal, not setting these plans. So yeah, that totally makes sense, Casey.
Yeah. And like having that like why in that direction too, like when you know exactly what you're aiming for, it's going to be way easier for you to actually stay disciplined, even if life is a little bit busier with transitioning into this season, right?
Yeah, you have to have a goal that like matters to you. Because if you have just like, oh, I want to lose weight, well, you're not gonna really feel that. You don't. It's cool, it's an idea, but maybe you don't really want it. So you need to think about a goal that like really kind of gets your juices flowing, that you can really get excited about. Because in my eyes, like that's the only real way that you are going to make a change. And no one else can convince you of this, right? You need to be ready for a change. So like find a goal that gets you excited, like that really motivates you, because then it's going to feel a lot easier to get started and start building that momentum. And it's honestly only the first, couple of weeks that are really the toughest part, is like building that momentum. So I think if you have a goal in mind, you set yourself a plan, and you constantly are, looking over it and like keeping an eye on it, it's your chances of success are so much greater. And I think you're going to be happy that you did that, and you just have to take it one day at a time. And it starts today. Like, start today. Do something. There's always something that you can do. There's always a choice that you can make. And so make a choice that, your future self is going to thank you for. Like, think about, you tomorrow. Like, what will you tomorrow thank yourself for doing today? And I think if you can think of it that way, it makes it just feel a lot more attainable. And before you know it, you'll be consistent. You'll be a couple weeks in, you'll be crushing it.